president of American Baptist College. And Dr. Lafayette has given us some remembrances of his time with Dr. Martin Luther King. And of course, Dr. Lafayette, before we left for our first commercial break, you were telling us about aspects of Dr. Martin Luther King and some of the things in his, as part of his personality. But let's look at the civil rights movement in its entirety from the point of view of post-1960 and after 1960. Exactly what did it mean to live in a segregated America at the time, not only a segregated South, but a segregated America? Let's look at it so for those of our viewers who might not understand what the celebration is all about, let's look at it from that perspective.
Well, it's hard for some people to conceive or even imagine that you were allowed to shop in a department store at all the other counters. You could buy whatever radios, you could buy shoes, you could buy other kinds of items, but you were not allowed to sit at the eating facility, whether it was a restaurant or a lunch counter. And many of our department stores at that time, here in Nashville, for example, Kane Sloan's and Harvey's, you were not allowed to eat. Even if you had the money, but you were not allowed to eat. Now, it's interesting that they would allow you to have takeout. There was a little takeout counter on the side. You could stand. But it was something about sitting down that they found very offensive. In fact, it's hard to believe the laws. There were actually laws that made it illegal for black people and white people to sit down in the same restaurant. So even if the restaurant owner wanted to provide services for everyone and didn't care, he would be in violation of the law.
And so the laws had the police authority of the state to back them up, and so it was not really the ability of just the general population.
Or individual proprietor.
It had to do that.
Sure. Individual proprietor, you couldn't decide how you're going to run your place or who you were going to serve. And it was very interesting that this kind of policy continued to prevail. They were afraid. White people who owned places were afraid to serve blacks, even if they wanted to, because they would be in violation of the law, and they could be arrested for violating the law. Same thing with hotels. Black people could not go to the Howard Johnson's or the Holiday Inn and check in like anyone else now. We take for granted, as you point out, or the restaurants as well. You could not have it. Everything had to be strictly segregated. So this was, first of all, we felt it was immoral, because what was the message? The reason why there was segregation is because it implied that blacks and whites were not equal, and that blacks were inferior, therefore whites were superior, and that the blacks could not sit in the same place where whites were eating.
And so this not only included eating, this education facilities and on down the line.
Absolutely. Sports, you could not play against each other's teams, like we have here in our colleges and universities. In fact, you could not sit in the same classroom at the university. And in one case, they did allow you to open up and sit in the same classroom, but then you couldn't live in the dormitories. The athletes